Do you know what beef is? Do you really know what beef is? Ha 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 ha. Check out this bizarre person trying to claim that global warming isn't human caused. Anthropogenic, climate change skeptic, convinced that the liberal media's out to get them. Sometimes they tell us that the warming isn't happening, other times it's happening, but it's just a natural thing.
Climate is changing, and climate has always changed, and it always will. There's archaeological evidence of that, there's biblical evidence of that, there's historic evidence of that.
Their views vary and remain contrarian. Economically, they're invariably libertarian. They think government's already too massive, and climate change is just a scam to expand it. Commonly, you can find them on a comment stream, anonymously commenting, cherry-picking the bit of temperature data, and trying to claim that climate change is in hiatus. It's not, the trends are still going straight up, but they ain't trying to change their minds once they're made up. So now the scientists know, but the public doesn't. They think the government can't be trusted, it's up to something. Either they deny there's a consensus, or they view it through conspiracy lenses. What's beef? Beef is when the scientific findings all agree. Beef is when the public perceives controversy. Beef is when the contrarian view, with no data supporting it, still gets through. What's beef? Beef is the whole field of climatology. Beef is 97% against 3. Beef is when your worldview predetermines what you don't believe and what you do. In the eyes of deniers, the science is biased, cause temperature changed rapidly up in the younger Dryas. And if climate really changed in the past with no fossil fuels, well, what's up with that? First portray the science as nothing but shaky guesswork, then cite the research of a bunch of fake experts. There's a formula and some are paid to follow it, but most of them are just in an echo chamber that swallowed it. And some are even smart as whips, sharp as tacks. All that cleverness just makes them clever with the facts. They emphasize the controversy and uncertainty, like we should probably just wait and keep researching. Science always has to deal with probabilities, but how we interpret them reveals our flexibility. If it's a 1% terrorist threat, that's a killing spree. Better invest in the military. But when the science is 98% confident about the climate, they say scientists admit dissent. That's the method, scientists have to admit it. I guess they need some backup from some rappers who get it. What's beef? Beef is when the scientific findings all agree. Beef is when the public perceives controversy. Beef is when the contrarian view, with no data supporting it, still gets through. What's beef? Beef is the whole field of climatology. Beef is 97% against 3. Beef is when your worldview predetermines what you don't believe and what you do. So what about my worldview? How was it shaped? A liberal Canadian, environmentally raised. When I was 13, my mama was working on her master's on climate change, researching. And my dad ran a company that planted trees, taking carbon out the atmosphere with forestry. In 1992, my mama's thesis was about CO2 and Svante Arrhenius. So if you try to tell me that climate change isn't serious, you're dissing my mama. Yup, I'm kinda cliquish. People tend to believe what their friends believe, and believe the opposite of perceived enemies. So pick a team, baby, what's it gonna be? Is it Team Trump or Team Green Energy? Don't get me started on the other conspiracies. GMOs, nuclear power, vaccines, 9/11, evolution and creationism. I'm taking the scientific mainstream position, unless you've got some major evidence to overturn it. Major evidence, not your cherry-picking kernels. In the scientific mainstream on climate change says it's happening, it's dangerous, and yeah, it's man-made. And there's a debate, but it's not against the few who doubt it. The debate is what to do about it. What's beef? Beef is when the scientific findings all agree. Beef is when the public perceives controversy. Beef is when the contrarian view, with no data supporting it, still gets through. What's beef? Beef is the whole field of climatology. Beef is 97% against 3. Beef is when your worldview predetermines what you don't believe and what you do. Do you know what beef is? Do you really know what beef is? In this context, beef is clearly a metaphor for political disagreements fueled by divergent interpretations of scientific data. Stop the violence, y'all.